And ladies and gentlemen, we're back, making it happen for you right here on another episode of the Feel Good Show. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome back the man of the hour. He's owning the airwaves, making it happen. Ladies and gentlemen, it's none other than T-Boz, ready, prepared to bring you words of wisdom and moments of meditation. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I tell you, after an introduction like that, I want to hear the Rocky theme, and I want to run up my front steps, the stoop, as we call it in Long Island, and jump around and do my thing. But welcome, The only thing is I'm blind, so I'll probably hit my head, and then that won't be good. So we'll do the almost Rocky thing. I'll just dance around on the sidewalk. Welcome, everyone. I am so fired up from a wonderful vacation. We're going to talk about that. Come on in, everyone. A lot of you have been doing farm chores, trimming your roses, feeding the animals. A lot of you guys and gals making business calls to customers early this morning or getting out there doing some work. So take a little minute, grab your cup of coffee, sit right down in front here. There's seats along the back. We've got a nice couch they put over there. For those of you who want to really relax during the show, just please don't fall asleep. But come on in. It's a very welcoming classroom. There's no bar you have to rise to. Just sit back and listen to some thoughts and go from there. So, as I mentioned, I got to thank my friend Jim Boscarino, because we were talking last week, and he was talking about a topic, and he said, Boz, when I take on something, he's a member of the Holy Name Society at St. John Paul the Great. He said, when I take on something, I commit to it. And, he was speaking to me, and just because I do these inspirational talks does not mean that I don't get inspired by what people say to me, even though they may not quote scripture or famous people and all of that. So when my friend Jim said that to me, and I knew I was going on this 3-day vacation with Lady Boz, also known as Veronica, or really known as Veronica, I could very easily said to Jock, well, I'll be away, I got to do my notes and do my research. But Jim's words rang in my ears, and I said, you know what? Even though I'm going to be away, I'm going to make the time, like Eddie Kobus told my brother. We mentioned that on a show months ago. And I'm going to make the time to do my homework, and so that I can do the show Thursday, fresh coming in from the coast last night at 9 o'clock. Got up very early this morning to do the layout, the production part of it. But Jock has given me this opportunity, and I want to serve the community, which is all of you. And so thank you, Jim, for making sure that I stay on track. And we're going to talk about mentoring. Jim almost did a little bit of mentoring there today. But before we get into mentoring, we're going to do our shout-outs, and then we have a quote by a famous actress. But again, no three-legged stool this week, boys and girls. A little bit of an abbreviated show, but a show nonetheless, and the show must go on. So, first shout-out, happy Father's Day to all you guys out there, grandfathers, fathers, godfathers, all of you out there, and a special one to my son-in-law, Justin, who this is his first Father Day with my grandson, Jackson. So many... Happy Father's Day is coming up for you. And for all of you who your dads are no longer with us and they're smiling down on you from heaven, happy Father's Day to those, including my own father, who passed away 9 years ago. The Waterbury Symphony with Barbara and Stan up at 5 Points with the old UConn campus. Jock, can you say Blue Rondo a la Turk and the look of love? Boys and girls, what an awesome event we attended up there right here in Torrington. Beautiful music, well-produced, beautiful facility. They even gave us a tour of all the art classes they have up there. It's amazing what they've done. I spoke about this with Jock a little bit before we went on air. I'm grateful for, and a lot of you are not going to like what I'm going to say, but I'm grateful for the new face that 5 Points is putting on Torrington. We can't compete with Bridgeport. We can't compete with New Haven. We have to have our own identity. What do I say at the end of the show? Be yourself. Everyone else is taken. I want Torrington to be itself because all the other cities are taken. And if we can become an arts center where people can travel from not only Connecticut but all around to see what we have here, I mean, we have the Nutmeg Ballet and what 5 Points is doing, I'm all for it. I'm all about new. We talk about in Scripture, behold, I make all things new. And if the mayor is listening, I have a new name. Instead of downtown, I don't believe in bring back the downtown. I don't like the word back. What I believe in, bring forward. And what about maybe one day renaming it to Torrington Center? Huh, John? It's Fairfield Center. It's West Hartford Center. We could have those little flags on the light post that say Torrington Center, Arts Center. I mean, it's marketing, boys and girls. And I say this all the time. If some of you would go up by Klug's Farm, you would see where Torrington started. Because down here in the valley that you love from downtown Thursday night was a swamp. But because those people thought bigger than where they were, they developed the city that you all came to love through the 30s, 40s, and 50s. But that has changed, and we talked about that on the show many times. Torrington is poised to becoming an arts capital, along with the restaurants that are down there, along with shopping, but Torrington Center, it has a nice ring to it. So, Mayor, if you're listening, I give you that, and you could take it and run with it from there. But what a wonderful concert. And Barbara and Stan and Veronica and I, absolutely, we walked out of there on cloud nine. It was an amazing thing. And very quickly, our vacation to Old Saybrook, boys and girls. I know the taxes are high in Connecticut. We have a gorgeous state. You can be up here in the mountains, and you could be down by the coast. Old Saybrook Point is amazing. First time I've been there. Absolutely amazing. And I'm going to digress for a minute. Those of you who are listening, especially those of you who are business people, life is short. Monday will be the 7th anniversary of my wife's passing. Veronica and I have learned the hard way that life is short. Whatever customer you're running to, whatever job you're trying to get done, whatever client order you're trying to fill, let me explain something, boys and girls. When you die, that client or that customer won't be at your funeral. But the person looking across from you, I don't care if you're heterosexual, homosexual, transgender, significant other, I don't care. That person that you get in bed with at night, that person that's having dinner with you, they're going to be graveside. Make the time for the people you love. Take the day off, hang up the phone, and go. Do what Veronica and I did. We took 3 days in-state. We didn't have to go far, and we enjoyed the beauty that Connecticut has to offer. And then we went to the lake cottage with our dear friends Fred and Lucille. If you notice, girls and boys, there's a pattern here. Barbara and Stan, Fred and Lucille. What are Veronica and I doing? We're spending time with people we value, we love, and respect, because those will be the people that'll be at the funeral. I know these are hard words for a lot of you, but take it to heart. Life is short. Too short. So, beautiful time. Thank you, Fred and Lucille, for the tour of Niantic and the beautiful lake cottage and the lunch we had. The only thing we didn't get to do was the ride in his nice car, but that'll come up in a future visit. So get around the people you love. Now, let's get into our topic, mentoring. Now, some of you are following along. As you know, Tommy always has one class to another class to another class. Connect the dots, DOT, okay? So we talked about transformation of ourselves. We talked about transition a couple of weeks ago before I had to take that break. And we talked about the Holy Spirit coming into us and helping us make transitions in life. We went through that. So now we are all filled with this Spirit. We are filled with this Holy Spirit. So what are we going to do with it? Well, we have to take it. We talked about gifts, right? What do you do with a gift? You give it away. So we have to take what we've been transformed, how we've transitioned, take the gift of the Spirit, and bring it to others. Now, another little disclaimer, and Jock and my friend Catherine used this word. This class is open to all. You don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be a Muslim. You don't have to be a Mormon. If you're atheist, agnostic, I don't care if you believe in nothing, then use a moral code Catherine used this word, Jock used it. Those people, too, have a good moral code, and they could be mentors as well. I do use a lot of scripture in my talk. That's my base. Take what you want, leave what you don't want, like at the grocery store. But people who are not Christians still have a good moral code and can be good mentors to others. This segment of Jock's show is open to all. ALL. And so I don't want anyone to feel that because we use a lot of scripture and because I reference that a lot, that they cannot be a good mentor, which is what we're going to talk about today. If you have a good moral code, as Jock says, you're in the game. Okay, so we're going to talk about mentoring, and then we're going to have a couple of little mentoring stories about other people I know in my life, and then there's going to be the big, actually, Father's Day tie-in with how a coach mentored me that then really affected my father and I back in 1971. That's going to be in the middle of the talk. We're going to get to that. I want to see how we're doing with time. Okay, we're good because we want to be at the break at 11:29. All right, so let's start with, we always like to start with Webster's. What does mentoring mean? Well, as a noun, it means you're an advisor with experience. As a verb, it means to advise and to train, especially to someone, a younger colleague. Someone said to me, the guy's name was Herb Hansen, says, experience is the best teacher. Not your experience, because it takes too long, but the experience of others. But we're also going to dig a little deeper because mentoring is a little different than teaching. Mentoring versus teaching. Mentoring is applying knowledge in practice, not just how to do something. But the why what you're learning is useful, okay? In teaching focuses on how to do something. We just said that. And mentoring is the why. So, my point, we have the spirit. Who in your life could be a son or daughter, doesn't always have to go outside the box, charity begins at home, could be a neighbor, could be anybody. Look what Jock has done with me here, okay? Jock has mentored me. He offered me this. And so he helps me. We talk about this show afterwards. My friend Catherine, who's been a mentor to me twice in my life, I go to her for advice after these shows. Her experience, she was very big with IT in the Blue Cross Blue Shield, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, and she started out as a teacher in her career. Okay, my friend Keith Hodder. These people, when they found me, it was at a meeting for retinitis pigmentosa. And be careful if you go to a meeting, boys and girls, of people who can read lips. And I mentioned to my late wife, I went to the meeting for help. They ended up hearing me say or watching me say to my wife, gee, this looks like a good organization. They made me president. And I didn't know what an agenda was. I thought an agenda was a spice. I knew nothing about running a meeting. The only meeting I ran was in a track meet. But Keith and Catherine took a coal, a diamond in the rough, and with patience and with understanding and with love, they molded me into being the president of the affiliate for retinitis pigmentosa in Connecticut for, I think, 3 years. And they mentored me. So you come across people sometimes who see the talents in you, and then they can help you grow into that person. But when you're teaching someone something, you're telling them what to do. But in mentoring, they didn't tell me what to do. They guided me, and they took my questions, and they helped me. And so all of us have that ability to mentor someone. It could be a total stranger like Catherine and Keith found me, it's over 30 years ago, I think. Or it could be someone close to you. Let's just see where we are with the time, Jock. And it's 11:29. Why don't we hit the break and then we'll roll through.
And we'd like to take this opportunity to thank and recognize our generous sponsors for allowing us the opportunity to bring you exclusive programming that you're hearing today. We want to give a big, huge shout out to the Nutmeg Conservatory for the Arts, Torrington Savings Bank, TDI, Torrington Distributors Incorporated, and Charlotte Hungerford Hospital. Thank you so very much for helping WAPJ continue to keep the unity in the community. And we'll turn the show back over to T-Boz.
I think one of the most famous mentors all of you know is Anne Sullivan. Who did she mentor? Helen Keller. And I love Helen Keller's quote when she says, I feel sorry for the people who have sight and have no vision. So as a mentor, you're helping someone make their vision or to see their vision clearer. And so Anne Sullivan said, every Renaissance comes to the world with a cry of the human spirit to be free. Boom. What did we just talk about 2 weeks ago? The spirit. Here's Anne Sullivan. I don't know what her religious background is, nor do I care. But what does she talk about? The cry of the human spirit. She saw a spirit in Helen Keller, even though she was disabled. She was deaf and she was blind. And she became a college graduate and has so many accolades. We don't have enough time on the show to mention it. So, but the human spirit to be free. So what mentoring does is it frees people. We're going to talk about anxiety and mental health issues a little bit. I'm not an expert, but just what my research took me to. So there's Anne Sullivan. She saw the best in Helen Keller, and she impacted her life. I like what Steven Spielberg says. Now, normally we start with Psalms and Proverbs, but I just want to turn the table on you guys, do something different. Steven Spielberg says, mentoring is not creating someone in your image, but giving them the opportunity, not the guarantee, the opportunity to create themselves. Boom. Again. Create them. What do we always talk about this show? Be yourself. Everyone else is taken. So what Spielberg is saying is a lot of times, and we do it as parents, a lot of times we're trying to, you got to do this. We're telling people what they should do. It's not the way it works. What Spielberg is saying is not creating your image, but helping them to create an image or a dream of themselves. And if we look at our scripture verse of the Good Shepherd in John 10:27, what does Jesus say? The sheep hear my voice and they know my voice. A shepherd doesn't beat the sheep into the corral, doesn't beat them into the pasture. You ever say they guide them gently with that rod and staff, and the sheep know his voice. So do the people you're loving and being with, maybe it's a kid on a team, maybe you're a teacher, maybe you're a coach, parent, grandparent, anybody can be a mentor. You don't need a degree for this, okay? But do they know your voice? The sheep hear my voice and recognize. In other words, what the sheep hear is the love of the shepherd. That's what Jesus is talking about. So do the people you know, is someone coming to you for help, and are you hearing them? Or as I said earlier, are you so busy being busy that you don't have time to do the things that are really important? You're not going to be remembered on how much money you made when you die. What your legacy is going to be is what you leave behind in terms of the lives that you impact. Mentoring is a way to impact those lives. You know what they said when John D. Rockefeller died? They said, how much money does a man need? He said a little bit more. And then when he died, they said, what did he leave? He said, everything. His lawyers said, everything. So by mentoring, you could leave generations of the impact of your life. So I like what Spielberg says, creating themselves. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. So if you're mentoring someone, it's instruction. You're not telling them what to do. It's instruction. So giving a wise man instruction, they will become even wiser. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 5. Let the wise hear and increase in learning. The one who understands obtains guidance. Wow. The one who understands. The word understands means to get under and help up. Understand. Okay? So the one who understands obtains guidance. So there are people out there longing for what you can give them in your experience, as we said earlier, and your guidance, if you're willing to let them create themselves. Each and every one of you listening to this program have gifts and talents. Some of you can tap dance, some of you can't. Doesn't matter. But whatever gifts and talents you have, you all don't have to be Derek Jeter, but you have something to offer someone because the Spirit is in you. What does the word Emmanuel mean? God with us. Not God next to us, not God in front of us, not God behind us, God with us. So God is with all of you. So now it's your turn as a good human being to share that and to mentor someone. We look at Ecclesiastes and it says, two are better than one because they have a reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up the other. Who are you lifting up, boys and girls? Who are you lifting up? Who do you know has come into your life and needs your guidance, your expertise, your gentle hand like the Good Shepherd? Jason Lope, yep, I said that right. Jason Lope, he serves on the board of Affinity Mentoring, says just playing soccer or playing Uno can relieve the stress of the day. And it opens up an avenue where conversation and talk about what people want to do, and you build trust. Okay, we talked about the late Colin Powell a couple of weeks ago, about how we said if a soldier loses trust in you, then you've lost that soldier to come to you when he has problems, all right? So even the late, great Colin Powell knew the positive role of mentoring. So what Jason Lope is saying is that you don't have to be standing on a stage with, a big, long book of to-dos. Just maybe playing soccer, inviting someone to go shoot a little hoop. And as you're doing that, you begin to talk and phrase things and begin to make a friend and then a trusted friend, and you move from there. Here's some benefits of mentoring. Not only you, the mentor, but the mentee begins to get self-confidence, okay? And an increase in confidence can positively impact the mentee's feeling for support in their decisions and their career paths. What a lot of people are struggling with in terms of moving forward or just moving at all is they don't feel the support from other people. Not support in money. You give a man a fish, you feed him for the day. You teach a man to fish, you feed him for life. So what people are looking for, that's what mentoring is. What people are looking for is support, someone that believes in them, someone that helps them with their vision. I feel sorry for the people with sight and have no vision. All right? Isolation is a problem. A lot of what we see with these and I'm not saying I have the answer to all of this, but with this gun violence, a lot of these people who are committing this must be very isolated. They must have mental health issues. They must have anxiety issues. But mentoring can greatly reduce anxiety. Mentoring can help people. A lot of these kids, most of these kids are doing, they come home from school. If they even go to school, they're sitting in a room with their TV or their laptop or their cell phone. That's their social life. That's not good. And so as a mentor, you can draw these kids out of isolation. You could just be the father, the mother, the grandmother, the neighbor, and get them to come out, talk to them. You can't have any kind of self-confidence or any kind of career goals if you're just sitting looking at a phone all day long. It's in your room. And so isolation is a problem. So my belief, I'm not a mental, expert, but a lot of these people are suffering from anxiety and isolation. And I'm not blaming anyone, but just maybe if someone might have mentored or taken an interest in someone, maybe that might be a small seed to the problem. May not be the whole problem, but a small seed to the problem. Maybe the person you mentor, you could be saving their life as the well of lives of others. And so mental health is a big problem. It has anxiety, and anxiety creates barriers to keep you from doing things that you want to do. You're so anxious about things. Well, I have anxiety, right? I'm sure Jack and we all do, but we kind of like in a more manageable way, right? What they're talking about here is anxiety. People don't even move. You can't steer a car that's parked, okay? So anxiety is that blocker. But through mentoring, through an interest in someone, through love, and through the Renaissance and the human spirit, as Ann Sullivan said, as we move through, as we can get into people, get into that bubble, maybe they'll open up. And as they open up, some of their fears will come out, and either A, you can help them, or guide them, guidance, we talked about that in Proverbs, guide them to facilities or institutions that can help them. So mentoring is not only for getting the good job or hitting the basketball, but mentoring could really help someone who's really struggling. Maybe there's a kid in your neighborhood whose parents are divorced. Maybe there's a kid in your neighborhood, the father, unfortunately, is an addict, or the mother and father are no longer around. That kid is hurting. I was blessed. Veronica's heard a million times, and my brother may be listening, and my sister. We grew up in Long Island. We were as close to Leave It to Beaver as you can possibly imagine. It wasn't perfect at 73 Syracuse Street, but it was close to Leave It to Beaver as you can imagine. I was very blessed. Not everybody has that kind of life. And so mentoring could maybe help the kid down the street. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 3 says, not domineering to those who are entrusted to you or in your charge, depending on your whatever translation you're reading, but be examples to the flock. Boom. Sometimes I say we on this show because I'm in there too, right? Sometimes we are too busy telling people or controlling. That's a whole nother show one day we're going to do about control issues. But sometimes we're too busy telling and controlling the people we love or people we care about instead of being an example. But you know what line I disapprove of when a parent says, you're the oldest, Frank, you need to be an example to your brothers and sisters. No, Frank is a child. You're the parent. You need to be the example to the family, not Frank. You're the mother. You're the father. And the problem in today's society is the grandparents have become the parents, and the sons, the parents look like the kids. They look like the older brother and sister. That's not supposed to go that way. So I never said to my older daughter, you need to be an example for Rachel. We were the parents. We set the example. So what example are we being to people? Are we an example that people want to come to us, as Colin Powell said, with their troubles? Are we an example where people feel confident where they say, gee, I think I'm going to talk to that person. I may want to go out for the basketball team, or I may want to take a course. My brother's wife, Lynn, her father, the late Anthony Pontonio, Tony as we call him, when he came from he came from Italy to Canada, and then they came to the United States. And he was kind of at young age, not, in his late teens, early 20s, kind of a little before, after that, I think, was kind of struggling with his career path. And Uncle Dominic said to Mr. Pontonio, why don't you get into electronics, Tony? It's an expanding field. You're a pretty smart kid. Well, let me tell you something. He listened to his uncle, and he got involved in electronics, ended up working for Norton Systems, then worked, I think, almost 50 years for Sikorsky's, was very specialized in what he did. My sister-in-law had a wonderful life, a beautiful home, which her mother just sold, with 4 beautiful children. And so Mr. Pontonio's life was changed for the better because his uncle took an interest in him. Now, maybe that wasn't a long mentoring program, but he had respect for his uncle. Remember I said charity begins at home. And so he saw that his nephew needed a little guidance and said, why don't you take electronics? He could have said, the kid's not going to listen to me. I'm busy with this. I got to get this job done. But he took time in Tony Pontonio and changed the course of his life. You guys listening to this show have the same ability to do that. Sometimes it's a phrase. Sometimes it's having dinner with someone. Sometimes it's a bunch of other things. Psalm 119, verse 24, without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed. And we just talked about Mr. Pontonio getting that little nudge. We talked about Catherine and Keith Hodder helping me get that little nudge to help build the affiliate for the blind here in Connecticut, okay? They could have said, he's a trades guy. So what does Steven Spielberg say about creating themselves? So they didn't prejudge me. They helped create me. We look at Oprah Winfrey. Oh, remember her great show in the afternoon? A mentor is someone who allows, that word allow is very important, allows you to see the hope inside of yourself. So what Oprah says, it allows, isn't that amazing? Because what I just said before, we're all telling someone, but if you're a true mentor, you're allowing, you're giving that person latitude to make mistakes. You're giving that person latitude to try something. You're giving that person latitude to experiment, to find their dreams, but allows them to find who? Themselves. I'm going to tell you a mentor story about me, and it ties into my father, and I think we have enough time. When I was a kid growing up in Long Island, I was tall and skinny. And I was never picked for the basketball team. You know, at school, they played skins and shirts. When I took my shirt off, I disappeared. And so no one wanted me on the team. Plus, we didn't really know, but my eye condition must have been when I was young. I always used to miss the hoop. So always struck out at baseball. They always put me in left field where the ball never came. I was not an athlete at that point. My father, on the other hand, loved sports. Brooklyn Dodgers fan. My father loved baseball. He played all the time, stickball in Brooklyn. He loved sports. He had 3 sons. He figured, oh, this is great. I'm going to be at the ball game every week. Well, son number 2, me, really didn't like baseball. I didn't understand the game. I love it now. I didn't understand it, right? I did Little League because I wanted to make my father happy, and I'm sure my father was a little disappointed because there were other kids in the neighborhood always playing football and baseball, and I was too busy making believe I was a cowboy. And that was my interest in catching frogs in a swamp and all that kind of stuff, all right? But now I go to high school, and Coach Carbone saw me running around the track. And I had wanted to try out for the football team because I said to my mother, I'm going to change myself, reinvent myself for high school. I'm going to try out for the football team, imagine that, because I thought girls would like me. Okay, I'm a guy. But unfortunately, my eardrum broke, or fortunately, as God would have it, and it was so painful they had to put a tube in there, so contact sports were out. So Coach Carbone saw me running around the track in 1971. He pulled me over. He said, you know, you're pretty quick. You have a good gait. Now, he was a soccer coach, but he noticed something in me. He said, why don't you go out for the track team? So I did. And by God's good grace, it's a longer story, but we're going to shorten it up because I want to get to the highlight of this. By God's good grace, as a 14-year-old freshman, which was big in 1971, I made the varsity squad. I remember when Coach Millay pulled me up, I was like, you got to be kidding me. I was always the last kid picked for skins and shirts basketball. I struck out at baseball. You want me to be on varsity? He said, yes. Got my varsity jacket, my varsity letter. I was a freshman in high school. That year, they had the father and son. Now, this is where Coach Carbone, by mentoring me, not only affected me, which then gave me self-confidence that carried me through the rest of my life. The person you hear today doing this show was not the kid in school from 1st to 8th grade, because I had no self-confidence because no one liked me because I wasn't good at sport. But what I learned on the track team, the confidence that I built, is what has carried me through my life. And I know my brother's listening. He's probably shaking his head. So now my father and I go to the varsity dinner, 1971. Here my father walks in. It's all dads. We remember the days when you wore a black suit, black tie, black glasses. I'm there in a suit that doesn't fit. I probably got it from my uncle. A tie that's too big, doesn't matter. Hair's all greased down with Bro Cream. And we're sitting there with my friend Joe DeSar and his father, because he made varsity too. And we're sitting at the varsity dinner. Varsity dinner. So now they call the track team up. We're division champs that year. I'm on the division team, and I also made all North Shore, which was a coach's pick. They took all the schools on the North Shore of Long Island and picked the best runners. I'm looking out at the table. My father's looking at me like he saw God. His eyes, his smile, Jock, I can still see him. He's looking at me, and I'm standing up there with 2 trophies, one for division champ, the other one's for all North Shore, and I'm 14 years old, and everybody else in the room is 17 and 18, which at that age is huge. And something my father always loved is a son in sports, right? He finally got it. So I walked back to the table. He looked at me. He took the 2 trophies. He was looking at the trophies. His eyes were popping out of his head. He couldn't believe it. You know why? Because Coach Carbone took the time to say to me, Boz, you got a good gait. Why don't you try out for the track team? What he ended up doing was giving me self-confidence. I had a wonderful track career in high school, and he gave me the opportunity to give my father the gift of a lifetime. The gift of a lifetime. Boom. Why? Because he mentored me. He guided me. He saw something. That's the ability all of you have. So Coach Carbone didn't only affect my life, but my father's as well. My father and I walked home that night. My father was on cloud nine, and my father was the big man, so for him to be on cloud nine. Winston Churchill says, we make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. What are we giving? What I talked about earlier about going on vacation. What are we giving? Are we giving our time and ourselves? My friend Catherine said when we were at RP, she said, Boz, it'd be easier for me to write a check for this organization than to put the time in. But I put the time in because I want to help people. We make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. Take this week, boys and girls, to think about what you're giving. We're running out of time, so I'm going to have to go through this very quickly. Vince Lombardi, the great coach, says they call it coaching, but it's mentoring. You do not just tell them, you show them the reasons. Are you showing people the reasons why they can improve? Are you showing people the reasons why they can be better? What Lombardi was talking about was Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpens iron. A good man sharpens another. You can only sharpen iron with iron. You can't sharpen it with tin. Are you iron? Am I iron? Am I sharpening another person's life by being iron? Or am I just going through the motions? Proverbs 27:9, we're getting close to the end. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. Boom. Your friends are going to tell you what you want to hear. Your good friends are going to tell you what you need to hear. So as a mentor, sometimes it's not an easy job, I meant to say. Sometimes you got to tell people, but you can set them on the right path, and they can come back to you. How many of you might have went back to your high school teacher and said, thank you for guiding me in that class? Or maybe an uncle, maybe a neighbor. It could have been one person. My daughter Rachel was mentored by the late Butch Neal. Turned her into, she finished the fifth best dairy handler in all of New England because of his mentorship. That's the impact mentorship has on you. And even more so, maybe we can help some very lonely and isolated people if we reach out and mentor. Let's get to the takeaway. We're going to have to jump over some of this other stuff, but I wanted to share that mentoring story about me and my father, considering it was Father's Day coming up. Okay, Bob Proctor, who is a motivational speaker and author, he says this: a mentor is someone who sees more talent and ability in you than you see in yourself, then helps to bring it out in you. So mentoring is not saying, hey, Jock, you're a good singer. You should record an album. Hey, Jock, you throw a good fastball. Hey, Holly, you have a nice voice. You should be a radio personality. That's not what mentoring is. It's seeing the ability and talent and then helping them, taking time away from the ladder, taking time away from the lawnmower, taking time away from the car, taking time away from the sales, from the iPhone, and helping them to bring it out. Like what Catherine said, it's easier to write a check than to put the time in. But the time is what people want from you. I've never been to a funeral and anyone ever talked about money. They always talked about maybe the time they didn't spend. You, all of you listening, have the ability, the Spirit, God in you, to touch a life, change a life, help a life, encourage a life, and leave a greater impact than what John D. Rockefeller, when they said, what did he leave? And his accountant said, everything. You can leave more than stuff, boys and girls. Because the stuff you have, it's all going to end up in goodwill. But you could leave more. All the stuff my mother had when she died ended up in goodwill. But her legacy lives on in the four of us. And you have the opportunity to do that with people you love, know, and respect. Jock, you want to wrap this up, get to the song, and Friday Eve?
Well, as always, your words of wisdom and moments of meditation are very timely, and it just so happens that I'm in a very beneficial situation to be on the mentorship of someone who is definitely helping me in my career path. So your words today had even more deeper meaning than your past conversations with our listening audience. I think that one of the things that we have to realize, too, is that, especially when you were referring to the gun situation that we have going on in the country, that it's not, everyone can't be a mentor. But in situations like that, it's good if we can help, especially people who are going into their more formative years, that we give them coping skills. Because what happens a lot of times that I'm seeing is that people, they don't necessarily have mental health issues, but they come across situations that they don't quite know how to deal with. And out of that frustration, it causes them to act out. And if we can recognize and see those tendencies in people, then maybe we can intercede in that situation and help get them the help or assistance that they need. But that relies upon us keeping our eyes and ears open to these situations that are going on around us, so that we're not living in a bubble, but we see opportunities where we can be proactive and certainly add aid and comfort to those who might need it. So, as always, T-Boz, you're right on, and we so appreciate your contributions to the show and also to the community through your outreach efforts here.
Well, I thank you, Jock. I just have very quick, I want to say something about the vacation. It ties in what Jock just said. We were out in Old Saybrook, and everyone knows Katharine Hepburn, who was born in Hartford, ended up making her home out there. And she says, love has nothing to do with what you are expecting to get, but it has to do with everything you are expecting to give. So what Jock just said about people who need counseling and whatnot, give, my friends, out of love. So, Jock, we'll close with that. Hit the song. We'll be back next week, hopefully with another message. Thank you, everyone. And remember, be yourself. Everyone else is taken. Bye-bye.
Thanks, T-Boz.